We are getting ready to push the needle forward as I bring to you our first speaker of the day, our keynote speaker, the amazing Tish Times, who is the owner and founder of the Tish Times Sales Agency. She is all over the place. She's all over the world. She is making an impact. She's making a difference in women's lives. I've seen her all over social media. I've seen her doing praise and worship, and I got such amazing feedback from women who attended her last sales retreat that it prompted me to say, I know she's busy, but let me call because I've got to get her on this program so that she can share with all of you out there what it's going to take for you to make and close the sale. So everybody, let me get your attention and let's give her a big SHERO shout out. Let's welcome Miss Tish Times.
Well, hello, first of all. I'm so glad to be here. I'm never too busy to be in the room with you. So welcome to all the SHEROs. I am delighted to be here. And it's, for me to hear even that introduction and all the things that I've been blessed to be able to do, I'm always reminded of the time when I didn't see myself as quote unquote Tish Times. I didn't see myself as someone who had confidence or understood who she really was. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know that I was very introverted growing up, still introverted, but not, I've trained myself to do a lot more now. But my introvertedness really, in my opinion, kind of showed up as being afraid of using my voice, being afraid of really showing up. And that came from a lot of things in my childhood and my upbringing. I tell you this story today because it's so important, and I'm really hoping that somebody who is listening today, who will maybe even watch this later, my prayer on the way over here was that somebody would hear something that would change their mindset, that would change their heart, change the way that they think about themselves and how they do things. So our theme today is kind of like owning your value. But I wanted to talk to you about owning your value from a very different perspective. And that is understanding that sometimes owning your value is also recognizing where the source of your issues, shall I say issues, the things that might be driving your behavior, where do they come from? And so today, for me, I'm very clear that I had a concern with scarcity growing up. And it wasn't something that I chose, right? It wasn't something that I woke up and decided that I was going to kind of hold on to or allow it to drive my decisions and drive my life, but I saw it so frequently growing up. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my upbringing. So I grew up in a military household. My dad, when he retired, he was a sergeant major in the Army. So for those of y'all who don't know, that's pretty close. That's as far as you can go as an enlisted person. And we had a middle class upbringing. We lived in a 4-bedroom house. My mom drove a Cadillac all the time. And from the outside looking in, we looked like we were good and we had it together, right? I wore decent clothes to school. We weren't spending a lot of money on clothes, but I definitely didn't look like I was going without. But what was happening on the inside of my house was this. My mom, having grown up in a very impoverished home, her mom passed away when she was 15 years old, and she was literally left to care for 11 siblings. And she found herself always scrimping and trying to be resourceful and figure out how to take care of these children that she did not birth, but she was now responsible for. And, hats off to her, right? Kudos to her for making that happen and taking care of her family. But what happened, what was kind of, I think, planted in her as she grew up was the thought that there's never enough, right? That you always have to save and hold on to everything that you have because you never know when you're going to get more. You're never going to really have enough for the next day. And unfortunately, growing up in my household, my 4-bedroom, Cadillac drive-in, 2 cars, two garages, four children, we felt like you would think that we were doing well. But because of my mom's upbringing, every decision and every conversation around money always kind of installed scarcity into me. So we had 2 deep freezers and 2 refrigerators full of food at all times. And that sounds like, oh my God, you guys had plenty, but the plenty was only because of the fear of not having enough. We had 4 cabinets, extra cabinets outside of the ones in the kitchen. They were full to the brim of canned goods at all times. Again, not because we were like overabundant, it was because there was a fear of what if we run out? We had food under our beds. No joke, literally, we had foods under our beds at all times in case there was a tragedy. And when the year 2000 rolled around, if you all remember, there was this fear of the Y2K. For those of y'all who were born, I know some of y'all might be young, but there was this fear around what's going to happen, and are you going to have enough food? Well, my relatives were saying, well, we're going to the people's house, because that was my maiden name, the people's house, because there's always going to be plenty there because of the way my mom hoarded food. And why do I share that? I want you to understand how that fear of not having enough began to feed every decision, every conversation, all of my sales, efforts when I finally started my own business. And I had no idea that that's what it was coming from. But it actually created an environment where, because I was afraid of not having enough, if I was having a sales conversation, instead of thinking of how can I be a blessing to this person, how can I ensure that they have exactly what they need from me, through me, my thought was, I've got to make sure that we have enough to pay our payroll. We have to have enough to take care of this business. And it began to drive every decision that I was making far before that, but definitely after I started my business. And so that tape running through my mind, right? That tape that was constantly, you're never going to have enough. There's always going to be a deficit. So even when we started making millions of dollars in the staffing company that I started, that was my first business, it still felt like it was inadequate. It was insufficient. There was always a fear of not having enough. And so what happens when you are in that headspace of scarcity is this. You will self-sabotage yourself all the way back to not having enough, because that's your foundation. That is where you begin to believe you belong. And so as growing up, growing into a young adult, getting married, even though I married an amazing man who had his own stories that he came from. He came from his own issues with financial, lack and thoughts around it. Similar household too, a household where the father was doing well, the mother was a teacher, so they weren't financially lacking, but there was a mindset there also. So what ended up happening is when we started living and driving our lives forward, we began to sabotage ourselves right back to having evictions, having repos, having financial chaos. And I tell you this because there are people that are so ashamed of where they've come from, so ashamed of what has happened in their lives. They would never, ever share this type of thing from the stage. But I think it's important to understand that when I'm standing in front of someone and I'm afraid to tell them what my products cost, so I start discounting because I believe that they're not going to say yes, not because of their capacity, but because of my capacity. I had to learn how to reprogram my mind. I heard someone say something that I thought was really powerful. We always see our brain as this powerful, amazing, beautiful thing, which it is, right? I believe that that's the case. But the brain is also a child. And why I say that is it's programmable. It's plastic, meaning it can be reformatted and changed by our own will, by us deciding how we're going to reimagine things and speak differently to ourselves. And I've had to do that for such a long time because of what I saw. So I had a mother who was fear-based, but then I had a father who was impulse-based. And his thought process was, we better spend it now because I don't know when we're going to have it again. So I had a mom who would save and literally hoard everything, and a father who would spend pretty much everything. And let me tell you this. What that created for me was desperation, right? I grew up with fear and urgency, and it creates I call it a spirit of desperation where, You're always chasing the next thing. And so it took me a long journey to be able to get to the place where I then began to believe that I can be different, I can have different, I could sell different, right? I can show up different. It was a long journey, but this is important for us to understand that scarcity begins to cost you. It costs you more than money. It costs you character. It costs you integrity. It costs you alignment. And so I remember having a coach that said something to me years ago, and she said, I believe that everything's going to change for you when you get in alignment. And I didn't understand what alignment meant. Alignment was like this esoteric, what does that mean? I just couldn't quite capture what it really meant for me. And it took me time to understand that I was saying one thing and behaving differently. And the reason I was behaving differently is because I was thinking differently. And so I was saying yes to the wrong clients because I was afraid another one wouldn't come. I was underpricing my services far beyond what they were worth, far beyond what I was delivering to a client, because I didn't trust that people would pay more. I was forecasting, right? Forecasting my beliefs on my potential clients. How many of you all have ever been there before, where your mindset is causing others or inviting others to join you in the party that you have created for yourself? I was over-delivering and over-committing because, once again, I didn't understand my own value. I didn't understand how I could potentially be a high net worth individual or a person who could charge what they were really worth. And then I avoided all money conversations. And I remember being in a situation where I could show up and shine and share all of the things that I was able to do for a client. But the moment we began to have the money conversation, everything shifted. My body language shifted. I could feel it in my body. And guess what? If I could feel it, don't you believe that that potential client could feel it as well? Right? And so I want you all, as you're listening to this, I want you to kind of think for a moment, when is the time? Has there ever been a time where you knew what you did was good? You know that you were the master at your industry. You know that you're able to deliver at a high level. But when it comes time to talk price, when it comes time to talk invoicing and so on and so forth, you find yourself shrinking back. There's a scripture that says that God takes no pleasure in that soul that draws back. Sometimes we draw back because we don't understand who we are. And believe it or not, I was that person for so many years. I didn't believe who I was. I didn't understand what was put on the inside of me and who I was called to be and how I was called to serve. And that if I were to open up my mouth and serve at the level that I was supposed to serve at, that people's lives would be changed. I found myself creating this facade of outward, we call it Facebook famous now, outward success, but inward just absolute, I won't say failure because I wasn't failing, I just didn't know that yet. Inside I was broken and I hadn't found the place of healing yet. I hadn't mastered money thinking. I hadn't mastered sales thinking. And so all of the things I was doing outwardly were so disconnected from the things that I was doing inwardly. When my coach told me that I was out of alignment, that's what she was referring to. She was talking about the fact that my presence and how I would show up in a room was disconnected from my private thinking, how I was showing up inside, how I was showing up for myself. And so often we're so just charismatic and amazing for the people on the outside, but we don't show up for ourselves that way. And that means that when I'm talking to myself, instead of saying, girl, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, there's no one like you, you are designed and called for such a time as this. Instead of saying those things to myself, I would say them to my clients, but to me, I would say, you are a failure. You are never going to get this right. There's absolutely no way you're going to ever be able to master this thing. And what ended up having to happen for me, I had to stop saying, how do I make more money? Because this was the thing I didn't mention, is that because you all know my company is Tish Times Sales Agency, I can sell. So instead of dealing with the issue that was at hand, I would just go sell something because I would not know how to deal with what I had, and I would sabotage it away, but I had the gift of being able to go sell more. So I could go get more money, but this is the thing that I had to learn. Making more money doesn't cure the issue of the brokenness and the self-sabotage and the lack of valuing yourself. And so there'll be a vicious cycle that can happen in perpetuity unless you deal with the thing. And now I'm talking about money and scarcity because that's my story, but I want you to identify what's the thing that you know every January 1st, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to get this under control this year. I am going to master this year. I'm going to conquer it. I'm not ending this year the same way that I started it. And then next January, you're having that same conversation about that same thing. Raise your hand if you had that happen before, right? If you've been in that situation where the thing that you wanted to conquer last year is the thing that you're trying to conquer this year, and the thing that you tried to conquer the year before. That was what it was for me. And so I had to rebuild my approach to business. I had to rebuild my approach to sales. I had to rebuild my approach to life, in all honesty, from the inside out. So we're trying to often cure an internal problem with external solutions. And I love, as a coach, I love giving people strategies and solutions and all of the things that they can apply to their funnels and their sales processes and systems. And I think all of those things are important. But let me tell you this, if you don't deal with what's happening on the inside of you, no external bandage is going to heal what is broken on the inside of you.
Amen.
That's just the truth. And so I had to identify that there was an issue. And I'll tell you, for me, that only God could fix. For me, it was that only God could fix. And once I identified that this is not a problem that another book, another class, another coach, and all the things, and again, all of those things are crucial to your success. So please do all those things also. But first, you have to be willing to deal with the issue that's creating the problem in the first place. So for me, once I understood that this was a bigger issue than a sales problem or a business problem, I stopped chasing clients, right? I began to qualify instead of crave. I priced based on value and not based on fear. And I stopped selling to be liked and started selling to solve problems. And it changed everything for me. So it became about clarity, confidence, and alignment for me. And so from this point on, it's like I changed my mindset and then my sales began to follow. I changed my mindset and my business began to change. And we didn't even talk about this, but I changed my mindset and my marriage got even better. And we've been great, thank God, for over 30 years. But things began to change when I began to deal with the issues that were happening on the inside of me. And so this is what I want you to kind of walk away with. Today, money, scarcity, the issues that I dealt with before, they're no longer my boss. I've made a very clear decision in my life, put a line in the sand and said, look, I'm not going to bow to the things that for so long kind of led me around and caused me to make bad decisions, despise myself, right? All of these things. I decided, look, for me, God is my CEO. I am going to deal with the internal issues. I am going to be clear about how and why I show up to sell. I'm not selling because I need something. I'm selling because I want to solve a problem. I want to be of service. And I want the person that I encounter to be better as a result of our interaction. If you've ever been in that place before, I invite you to have that same conversation with yourself. Realize that you can reprogram, reset, reform your mind by what you say to yourself, and the things that you say to yourself, you believe more than what anybody else says. So change what you're saying, change what you're thinking, change how you're showing up, and begin to change how you serve the people. thank you all so much. I loved being here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you all.
Oh, thank you, Tish. Now, before you leave, I have a quick question because I know that mindset when it comes to sales is a big thing and it
Yeah.
really makes the difference. So here's my question is, what is the one sales mindset shift that every shero must embrace if she is truly wants to turn her purpose into profit?
Well, as I said earlier, I believe, and this is a study I'm working on because it's just so powerful, the neuroplasticity, that the mind can be reformatted, it can be shifted, it can be changed. And so if a shero entrepreneur would believe that, what I believed all of my life up until this point can be changed. Instead of thinking, well, this is how I've always done it, this is what I know, this is what I went to school for, all of those things are great. But if you would be willing to believe that I can make a different decision and have an entirely different life, I can make more than I've ever made, I can help more people than I've ever helped, it can change everything. But it comes down to you first believing. So belief is the first step in making a mindset shift, and then behavior will only follow once we've made a decision to believe. So change the belief system, believe that you can be a million, multi-million, billion even dollar earner. I get bold when it comes to making those declarations, right? And if they would be willing to believe that they can earn more, they can serve more, that's the first step.
All righty.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Listen, everyone, you can get more information about Tish Times. Her info will be in the chat. And at the end, we also have our digital VIP swag box where you can reach out to her. And also stay tuned to join us at the VIP networking hour from 2 to 3, and you can ask more detailed questions. All righty. Thank you so much, Tish.
Thank you.
Brenda, we have quite a few people who are commenting on what Tish say. Would you like me to share some?
Yes, please do before we segue to our next speaker. Thank you.
Excellent. We loved, I think the overall message here was that Tish was speaking the love language of many in here on how you can reprogram your mind, body, and energy.
Yeah. Yay.
That's good. Yeah,
We
definitely.
had somebody say that, let's see. Oh, the price, the discounting, overgiving, but undervaluing what you're giving. That seems to be the number one mic drop moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm guilty of that myself.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Trish.